I stand at the edge of my own wedding reception, watching my new mother-in-law tap her crystal champagne glass. The sound pierces through the murmur of conversation, and my stomach knots. Something in Vivian's eyes makes me want to grab Ryan's hand and run. My name is Arya, and this should be the happiest day of my life. Ladies and gentlemen, Vivian's voice carries across the garden with practiced elegance. I'd like to propose a toast to the interesting couple before us today. She pauses, her smile sharp as a blade. When Ryan first brought Arya home, I must admit I was surprised. After all, we had such different expectations for him. The crowd shifts uncomfortably. Ryan's hand tightens around mine, but he says nothing. Always says nothing when it comes to his mother. But here we are, Vivian continues, her gaze fixed on me. Ryan, darling, you've always had a charitable heart, taking in strays, helping the less fortunate. Remember that mangy cat you insisted on keeping when you were 12? She laughs, and a few nervous chuckles follow. I suppose some habits never change. My cheeks burn. The pearl necklace Ryan gave me this morning feels like it's choking me. I catch my sister Sophie's eye across the room. She's half rising from her chair, fury written across her face. To the happy couple, Vivian raises her glass. May Ryan's generosity continue to lift up those who weren't blessed with the advantages he's enjoyed. And Arya, dear, she turns that razor smile on me again. Do try to remember where you came from and where you are now. The silence that follows is deafening. My father, Thomas, is gripping his chair so hard his knuckles have gone white. My mother, Linda, has tears in her eyes, not the happy ones she had during the ceremony. Ryan finally speaks. Mother, that's enough. But his voice is weak, uncertain. Oh, darling, I'm only teasing. Vivian waves him off. Surely Arya can take a joke. After all, she'll need a thick skin to survive in our world, won't she? I feel the eyes of 200 guests burning into me. The country club members, the business associates, Ryan's extended family, all watching to see how the girl from the wrong side of town will react to being publicly gutted. Actually, I hear myself say, standing up, my voice is steady, surprising even me. I'd like to thank Vivian for that illuminating toast. I raise my own glass. You've made things very clear. Vivian's smile falters for just a moment. She wasn't expecting me to speak. To new beginnings, I continue, and to finally understanding exactly where I stand. I drain my champagne in one go, setting the glass down with perhaps more force than necessary. The rest of the reception passes in a blur of forced smiles and whispered conversations that stop when I walk by. Ryan keeps apologizing, but his words feel hollow. He doesn't understand that his silence during his mother's speech said more than any apology could. Later, as we're leaving for our honeymoon, I catch Vivian speaking to Derek, her business partner. It's nothing personal, she's saying, but someone had to put her in her place before she got too comfortable. I slip into the car, my wedding dress rustling against the leather seats. Ryan starts the engine, already launching into another apology about his mother's behavior. But I'm not listening. Instead, I'm thinking about the look in Vivian's eyes during that toast, that mix of contempt and satisfaction. She thinks she's won, thinks she's shown everyone exactly who I am and where I belong. But she's wrong. That toast didn't break me. It awakened something. As we drive away from the reception, I'm already planning. Vivian wanted to show everyone who I am. Fine, I'll show her exactly who I can become. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of hers. The honeymoon glow lasted exactly 3 weeks. That's when the first oversight happened. My name mysteriously missing from the guest list at the Hamilton family's annual charity gala. It must have been a clerical error, Ryan says, adjusting his bow tie in our bedroom mirror. Mother's assistant is new. I watch him from the bed, still in my bathrobe, like the clerical error that left me off the country club membership application, or the one that forgot to include me in the family portrait session. He doesn't meet my eyes in the reflection. I'll talk to her about it. Don't bother. I stand up, letting my wedding ring catch the light. We both know Vivian's assistant doesn't make mistakes. The door closes behind him with a soft click. Through the window, I watch him pull out of our driveway in his Mercedes, a wedding gift from his mother. Another reminder of where I stand in the hierarchy of Vivian's world. My phone buzzes. It's Sophie. Mom and Dad want you over for dinner tonight. At my parents' modest house, the tension is thick enough to cut. Dad's pacing the kitchen, while Mom serves her signature lasagna, comfort food for uncomfortable conversations. She's isolating you, Dad says, his fork stabbing the pasta. First the wedding toast, now this. It's a pattern, Arya. Thomas, Mom warns, but her eyes are worried. What? We're all thinking it. That woman's trying to push our daughter out of her son's life, piece by piece. I push my food around the plate. Ryan says he'll handle it. Sophie snorts, like he handled the toast or the country club thing. She leans forward. You know what Derek told me at the coffee shop yesterday? I look up. You talked to Derek? He didn't know who I was, but he was meeting someone, talking about how Vivian's planning to protect the family interests by having Ryan sign some new trust agreement, something about limiting spouse access. The lasagna turns to ash in my mouth. Dad's face darkens, but before he can speak, my phone chimes. It's a group text from Vivian to the family. Reminder, Margaret's 75th birthday dinner this Saturday. Black tie. Private room at LeBlanc. Family only. A second later, another message. Ryan, darling, please come early to help with arrangements. No mention of me. Not even a pretense this time. That's it. Sophie stands up. You need to fight back. And do what? I push my plate away. Throw a fit? Prove her right about the classless girl who married above her station. No, Sophie's eyes gleam. You need to beat her at her own game. You're smart, Arya. Smarter than she thinks. Use that. Later that night, I return home to find Ryan in his study. Papers spread across his desk. He looks up, guilty. Hey, I was just going through some family business stuff. I lean against the door frame. The new trust agreement. He freezes. How did you? Does it matter? I walk over, picking up one of the documents. Were you going to tell me before or after you signed away my access to our shared future? It's not like that, he starts, but I cut him off. Then what is it like, Ryan? Explain it to me. Explain how your mother's systematic campaign to erase me from your life is not like that. He stands, runs a hand through his hair. You don't understand the pressure she's under, the family name, the business. You're right, I say quietly. I don't understand. I don't understand how my husband can watch his mother destroy his marriage and do nothing. I turn to leave, but his voice stops me. Where are you going? To get ready for Margaret's birthday dinner. But Mother said, I know what she said. I look back at him, and I'm done listening. In our bedroom, I open my laptop and start searching. Vivian thinks she can write me out of this family story. Fine, but two can play at that game. Sophie's right. I'm smarter than Vivian thinks. And if she wants to protect family interests so badly, maybe it's time I took a closer look at exactly what those interests are, starting with why Derek's been making monthly visits to offshore banks. Margaret's birthday dinner becomes a battlefield. The moment I walk into LeBlanc, Vivian's fez freezes mid-laugh, her champagne glass suspended in the air. The private dining room falls silent. Darling, she recovers quickly. I believe there's been a misunderstanding about the guest list. I smile, channeling her own razor-sharp sweetness. No misunderstanding. I'm exactly where I should be. Margaret rises from her seat, her arthritis-twisted hands gripping her walker. Vivian, stop this nonsense. Arya is family now. Something flickers across Vivian's face. Pain, maybe fear. It's gone before I can be sure. Ryan pulls out my chair, but his hands are shaking. The tension crackling through the room makes the crystal chandelier seem ready to shatter. Actually, Margaret continues, settling back into her seat. This reminds me of another family dinner years ago, when you first brought Charles home, Vivian. Vivian's knuckles whiten around her glass. Mother, please. Your father's family treated you horribly, Margaret says, her voice carrying despite its age. Called you a gold digger. said you weren't good enough, remember? The revelation hits me like a physical blow. I look at Vivian, really look at her, and for a moment, I see something else behind the perfect makeup and designer dress, a shadow of another woman who once sat where I'm sitting. That was different, Vivian snaps. Was it? Margaret's eyes are sharp. You worked as a waitress. Charles came from old money. His mother tried everything to drive you away. Derek clears his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Margaret cuts him off. Because I watched my daughter transform herself into exactly the kind of woman who once tried to destroy her. The waiter arrives with the first course, his professional smile faltering at the tension. Nobody touches their plates. I protected this family, Vivian says quietly, dangerously. Everything I've done, every sacrifice. Like the sacrifice of sending Charles's family those photos. Margaret's words land like bombs. The ones that ruined his father's political career. Ryan's head snaps up. What photos? Ancient history, Vivian stands abruptly and completely irrelevant. But I see it now. The blueprint of her success, the foundation of her power. She didn't just marry into this world. She conquered it, destroyed those who stood in her way. You're right, Mother. Vivian's voice has gone cold. I learned from the best, from those who tried to destroy me. And I learned well. She turns to me. So believe me when I say, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I pull out my phone, opening the offshore banking records I'd discovered. I think I do. The color drains from Derek's face. Vivian goes very still. Monthly transfers to the Cayman Islands. I continue. Strange patterns in the company's charitable donations. It's amazing what you can find when people think you're too stupid to look. You're making dangerous accusations, Derek warns. No, I correct him. I'm making observations. The accusations will come from the IRS if these records end up on their desk. Ryan stands up looking lost. What's going on, Mother? Nothing, Vivian says sharply. Your wife is trying to cause trouble, like always. Like you caused trouble for Charles's family? I press. Is that why he left? Because he discovered what you really are. The slap echoes through the room. My cheek burns where Vivian's hand connected, but I don't flinch. Mother, Ryan shouts, finally finding his voice. Margaret's quiet voice cuts through the chaos. You've become everything you once hated, Vivian. Vivian grabs her purse, her perfect composure cracking. This dinner is over. Derek, my office, first thing tomorrow. She pauses at the door, looking back at me. You want to play this game? Fine, but remember, I've been playing it longer. After she leaves, Ryan turns to me, his face a storm of confusion and anger. What have you done? What you wouldn't, I answer. I fought back. Margaret reaches across the table, her wrinkled hand covering mine. Be careful, dear. Revenge has a way of changing people. I should know. I watched it change my daughter. I looked down at the banking records on my phone, then at the door where Vivian disappeared. The woman who crawled her way up from nothing, who destroyed her enemies, who became the very monster she once fought. Is that what I'm becoming too? The suitcase lies open on our bed, half packed with whatever I could grab in 10 minutes. Ryan stands in the doorway, his face a mask I no longer recognize. So that's it? His voice is flat. You're running away? I fold another shirt, focusing on the crisp edges. Running implies fear. I'm choosing to leave. Because of what happened at grandmother's dinner, Mother apologized. No, I correct him. She sent a formal note through her secretary, expressing regret for any perceived impropriety. That's not an apology, that's damage control. The bedroom feels smaller than usual, like the walls are closing in. Through the window, I can see Vivian's car pulling up our driveway, right on schedule. She's here to explain everything, Ryan says, about the offshore accounts, about Charles. Like she explained about the trust agreement you were going to sign? I zip the suitcase closed. Or about how she's been systematically pushing me out of your life. A knock downstairs. Ryan doesn't move to answer it. You're becoming just like her, he says quietly. The words hit harder than Vivian's slap ever did. I turn to face him fully. What? The investigating, the threats, the ultimatums. You're fighting her by becoming her. Before I can respond, Sophie appears in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Don't go anywhere. You need to see this. She pulls out her phone, pulling up an email. Remember how I said I'd look into Charles? Well, I found something. Something big. The document on her screen is old, but clear enough. A newspaper article from 25 years ago. The headline reads, "Local business owner dies in suspicious car accident." That's Charles's father, Ryan says, moving closer. Read the date, Sophie urges. I do, then I read it again. This was 3 days after those photos Margaret mentioned, the ones that ruined his political career. Keep reading. The article mentions brake failure, a steep road, no witnesses, and at the bottom, a quote from the grieving family's spokesperson, Vivian Hamilton. She didn't just destroy his career, I whisper. We don't know that, Ryan interrupts. But his voice shakes. Another knock downstairs, more insistent this time. There's more. Sophie scrolls down. Guess who else died in a car accident with suspicious circumstances? The investigator who was looking into the campaign finance irregularities that those photos exposed. The room spins slightly. I sit on the edge of the bed, my packed suitcase forgotten. Arya, Vivian's voice carries up the stairs. We need to talk about this situation like adults. Ryan moves toward the door, but I grab his arm. Don't, please. He looks down at my hand, then at the article still displayed on Sophie's phone. For the first time, I see real fear in his eyes. What do you want me to do? He asks. Choose, I say simply. For once in your life, choose. Footsteps on the stairs. Sophie positions herself between me and the door. I can't just, Ryan starts. Yes, you can. Because if you don't, I'm walking out that door. And unlike Charles, I'll make sure I'm not alone on any steep roads. The footsteps reach our floor. Ryan looks at the door, then back at me. In that moment, I see every choice we've ever made, every compromise, every silence. And I realize this isn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It's about survival. Ryan? Vivian's voice is closer now. Darling, is she up here with you? Sheh. He takes a deep breath, and I watch my husband choose. No, mother, he calls out, his voice steady for the first time in weeks. She's not, and neither am I. He grabs my suitcase with one hand, my arm with the other. Sophie, is your car out back? She nods, a slow smile spreading across her face. Then let's go, he says, all of us. As we slip out the back door, I hear Vivian calling our names. But for once, she's not the one in control. For once, we're writing our own story. And this time I'm not running away. I'm running towards something much more dangerous. The truth. The motel room feels like a war room, with papers spread across every surface. Sophie types furiously on her laptop while Ryan paces, phone pressed to his ear. I'm staring at a photograph I found in Margaret's old albums, Vivian and Charles on their wedding day, looking young and in love, before everything went wrong. Derek's not answering. Ryan hangs up. But his secretary said he cleared his schedule for the next week. Emergency meetings with the board. Sophie looks up. They're moving money, fast. I've tracked 3 large transfers to different offshore accounts in the last hour. They know we know. Aita, still studying the photograph. There's something in Vivian's eyes. Even then, a hunger. My phone buzzes. A text from Margaret. Vivian's here, asking questions. Be careful. Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. Meet me at the old Hamilton factory, midnight. Come alone if you want the whole story. D. Ryan reads over my shoulder. It's a trap. Obviously, Sophie agrees. Derek's Vivian's puppet. Always has been. I set down the wedding photo. Maybe that's exactly why we should go. They both stare at me. We? Ryan asks. You and me. Sophie stays here, keeps tracking the money. If something goes wrong, I trail off, not wanting to finish the thought. If something goes wrong, I call Dad. Sophie completes it for me. He's got friends in the DA's office. They're already interested in those offshore accounts. Ryan grabs his keys. We should leave now, scout the location before a knock at the door freezes us all. Through the thin curtains, we can see a familiar silhouette. Arya, Vivian's voice is honey sweet. Darling, I know you're in there. Let's talk about this like family. Sophie quietly closes her laptop. Ryan moves toward the bathroom window. Our planned escape route. I brought something you might want to see, Vivian continues. About your father's construction company. Did you know he bid on Hamilton Properties contracts 3 years ago? Before you met Ryan? My blood runs cold. Dad never mentioned this. Such a shame about those anonymous complaints that killed the bid. Cost him nearly everything, didn't it? Would be terrible if history repeated itself. Ryan grabs my arm as I move toward the door. Don't, he whispers. But I'm already putting pieces together. The timing of Dad's near bankruptcy, the mysterious lost contracts. How convenient it was that Ryan met me just when my family was most vulnerable. 5 minutes, I say to Vivian through the door, alone. Arya, no. Sophie starts. I turn to them both. Get to the factory. I'll meet you there. And if I don't, I hand Sophie the wedding photograph. Look at her eyes. Really look. Then check the dates of every suspicious death around her, not just Charles's father. The bathroom window slides open silently. As they slip out, I count to 10, then open the door. Vivian stands there, elegant as ever, holding a thick folder. Smart girl, she says, finally learning to negotiate. Show me. She hands over the folder. Inside, I find documents proving everything. How she orchestrated my father's financial ruin. How she positioned Ryan to meet me. How she planned it all, years ago. Why? I ask, though I already suspect the answer. Because I needed to know, she says simply. If you were strong enough, if you could survive what I survived, what I had to become. You destroyed my family to test me? She smiles, and I see that hunger from the wedding photo. Stronger now. I made you stronger, like Charles's family made me stronger. The weak don't survive in this world, Arya. I needed to know if my son's wife could survive. I think of the offshore accounts, the suspicious deaths, the years of manipulation. And if I fail your test? Oh, darling. She reaches out to touch my cheek. I force myself not to flinch. You already have. The question now is, what are you willing to do about it? I step back, clutching the folder. I guess you'll find out at midnight. Her smile widens. So Derek reached out. Good. Remember what I said about survival, Arya. Only one of us can. As she walks away, I look down at the folder in my hands. The evidence I needed, handed over freely. Too freely. That's when I realize this isn't just about survival anymore. It's about who's really being tested and who's really doing the testing. The old Hamilton factory looms against the midnight sky, a steel and concrete tomb holding who knows how many secrets. Ryan's hand finds mine in the darkness. We don't have to do this, but we do. Because somewhere in that building, Derek is waiting with answers about Charles, about Vivian, about all the convenient accidents that paved her way to power. The side door creaks open at our touch. Inside, emergency lights cast sickly green shadows across abandoned machinery. Our footsteps echo on metal catwalks. Derek? Ryan calls out. A figure emerges from the shadows, but it's not Derek. It's Margaret, leaning heavily on her walker. Grandmother, Ryan steps forward. What are you? I'm sorry, she whispers. She made me choose. More shadows move. Security guards materialize from every corner. And there's Vivian, elegant even here, Derek at her shoulder, like a well-trained dog. Family, Vivian's voice that carries across the factory floor. Such a complicated thing, isn't it? I grip the folder of evidence she gave me earlier. Where's Sophie? Safe, for now. Vivian descends the metal stairs, each click of her heels like a gunshot, though that depends entirely on you. Ryan moves to shield me, but 2 guards grab his arms. Mother, stop this. Oh, darling, she sighs. I'm trying to save you from becoming your father, from choosing weakness over strength. She turns to me. Show them the folder, Arya. My hands shake as I open it, but the documents inside aren't what she gave me earlier. These are different. Photographs of my father accepting bribes, falsifying contracts, laundering money through his construction company. No, I shake my head. These are fake. Are they? Derek speaks up. Or did you just never want to see the truth? About your father, about Ryan, about yourself. What's he talking about? Ryan demands. Vivian produces another folder. Your father didn't just bid on Hamilton contracts, Arya. He helped me destroy his competitors, helped me cover up Charles's father's accident, all to protect his own interests. She smiles. Like father, like daughter. You're lying. Am I? Ask him yourself. The factory door opens again. My father walks in, looking older than I've ever seen him. Dad? He won't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I did what I had to do, to protect us, to protect you. And now, Vivian continues, you'll do what you have to do, to protect everyone. She hands me a USB drive, all the evidence of your father's crimes. And Ryan's involvement. Yes, darling, she tells her son. Those contracts you signed last year, not quite as clean as you thought. The pieces fall into place. The arranged marriage, the tests, the manipulation. We were never players in this game. We were pieces being moved across Vivian's board. What do you want? My voice sounds hollow. Sign over your shares in the company. Admit to orchestrating the offshore accounts. Take the fall. She steps closer, or watch everything you love burn. Don't. Ryan struggles against the guards. Arya, don't. Tick-tock. Derek checks his watch. Sophie's waiting, and those photos of her with the corporate accounts? Very convincing. I look at my father, broken by his own choices. At Margaret, forced to betray her grandson. At Ryan, finally seeing the true cost of his family's legacy. If I do this, I say slowly, everyone else walks away clean? You have my word. Vivian offers a pen and papers. Your word? I laugh, and it sounds like breaking glass. Like Charles had your word? Like his father had your word. Charles was weak, she snaps. Like you're being weak now. Sometimes survival means sacrifice. I take the pen, feel its weight. Think about Sophie, about Ryan, about all the lives Vivian has destroyed in the name of survival. You're right, I say. Sometimes it does. I sign the papers, watch Vivian's triumphant smile, watch my father's shoulders slump in relief, and then I pull out my phone, press play on the recording of everything that just happened, and watch that smile fade. You're not the only one who knows about sacrifice, I tell her. But before anyone can move, a shot rings out. Pain explodes in my shoulder. Through blurring vision, I see Derek lowering a gun, see Ryan breaking free, see Vivian's face transform from shock to something like respect. As darkness closes in, I hear her whisper, now we'll see who really survives. The hospital monitors beep steadily as I open my eyes. Ryan's asleep in the chair beside me, but Sophie stands at the window, phone pressed to her ear. They're moving the board meeting up, she whispers. Tomorrow morning, they're going to vote on the merger before anyone can stop them. I try to sit up, wincing at the pain in my shoulder. Where's the recording? Safe, but Vivian's claiming it was taken under duress. And with Dad's involvement, she trails off. The door opens. Vivian walks in, immaculate as ever. Behind her, Margaret wheels herself into the room, her walker replaced by a wheelchair I've never seen before. Everyone out? Vivian commands. Except Arya. Ryan stirs. I'm not leaving. Yes, you are. Margaret cuts in. Begin. Both of you, this ends now. After they leave, Vivian sits on the edge of my bed, studies me like a specimen under glass. You know what happened to Charles? She asked quietly. You killed him. No. She pulls out an old photograph. He killed himself after he discovered what his father had done. The embezzlement, the fraud, the lives destroyed. His precious moral code couldn't handle the truth about his family's legacy. So you covered it up. I protected what was mine. Her fingers trace the photograph's edge. Like you tried to protect your recording. But there's something you should know about survival, Arya. It's not about who's strongest. The door opens again. Derek enters, but something's different. He's not carrying himself like Vivian's loyal servant anymore. Show her, Vivian commands. Derek hands me a file. Inside are documents spanning decades, all bearing Margaret's signature. Property transfers, bank accounts, death certificates. I don't understand, I start. My mother, Vivian's voice turns bitter, taught me everything I know about his survival, about power. She orchestrated Charles's father's accident, arranged my marriage, shaped me into what she needed me to be. She looks at Margaret's wheelchair outside the door, and now she's doing it again. The truth hits like another bullet. She's been playing us all. For years, Derek confirms. I've been reporting to her, not Vivian. Everything. The toast, the exclusion, the contracts, all designed to test both of you. But why? Because power without purpose is meaningless. Margaret wheels herself back in. And family without strength is doomed to fall. She looks at Vivian. I had to know if either of you were worthy of the legacy, if you could do what needs to be done. And now, I ask. Now we know. Margaret produces a gun, the same one Derek used. One of you walks out of here with everything. The company, the truth, the future. She places it on my bed. Choose. Vivian doesn't move, doesn't reach for the gun, just watches me with those hungry eyes. And suddenly, I understand. This isn't about survival. It's about breaking the cycle. I pick up the gun, point it at Margaret. You're right. Family without strength is doomed. I turn it toward Vivian. But strength without mercy is just another kind of weakness. Then I press play on my phone. Not on the factory recording, but on the conversation we just had. The full confession. Sophie's not the only one who knows how to hack phones, I say, as Margaret's face darkens. The board already has this, along with proof of every manipulation, every crime, every test. It's over. You fool, Margaret snarls. You've destroyed everything. No, Vivian stands slowly. She saved us from becoming you. She takes the gun from my hand, places it out of reach, from destroying ourselves. Security arrives minutes later. As they lead Margaret away, she calls back. You'll regret this, both of you. Some things are worth any price. She's right, Vivian says after they're gone. About the price. She looks at me with something like respect. Welcome to the family, Arya, the real one. I think of all the pain, all the manipulation, all the lives broken in the name of legacy and power. What happens now? Now, she smiles, but it's different. Tired, real. Now we learn how to survive without destroying each other. As she leaves, I notice she's left the old photograph behind. But now I see what I missed before. It wasn't hunger in her eyes back then. It was fear. The same fear I see in my own reflection now. The Hamilton estate sale draws a smaller crowd than expected. I watch from the second-floor window as strangers pick through generations of carefully curated power, reduced now to price tags and lot numbers. Vivian appears beside me, her reflection ghosting against the glass. Margaret's lawyer called. She's refusing visitors. Good. We stand in silence, watching an elderly couple examine a crystal vase, the one Vivian used for her wedding toast at my reception. The memory feels like it belongs to someone else. I found this in Charles's old study. Vivian hands me a leather-bound journal. You should read it. The pages smell of dust and secrets. Charles's handwriting fills each page with observation about his family's corruption, his growing horror at discovering the truth. The last entry is dated 3 days before his death. He was going to expose everything, I realize. Not just his father's crimes, but the whole system. And now you have. Vivian's voice carries no accusation, just tired acceptance. The board voted this morning. The company's being dissolved. Assets redistributed. Footsteps on the stairs. Ryan and Sophie, carrying boxes. My sister's eyes are red-rimmed, but her voice is steady. Dad's paperwork is all sorted. The DA's office is offering a deal. Take it, I tell her. All of it ends here. Ryan sets down his box, pulls out an old photograph album. Look what I found. The images tell a story I never saw before. Vivian as a young mother, teaching Ryan to walk. Margaret watching from the background, always watching. The slow transformation of a family into a fortress. We're selling the house, Vivian announces suddenly. All of it, starting fresh. Where will you go? I ask. She smiles, and for the first time, it reaches her eyes. There's a small town in Oregon. Charles talked about retiring there before, well, before everything. The elderly couple buys the vase. As they carry it out, sunlight catches the crystal, sending rainbow fragments dancing across the walls. I've been thinking about what Margaret said, I say quietly, about survival, about strength. And I think real strength is knowing when to let go. Ryan takes my hand. Outside, the last of the estate sale crowd is dispersing. Soon this house will be empty, its walls no longer echoing with decades of manipulation and fear. There's something else you should know, Vivian says, about your father's company. The contracts weren't all Margaret's doing. Some of them, I chose those targets myself, including your father. The admission should hurt more than it does. But looking at her now, I see something I never expected. Remorse. Why tell me this? Because survival isn't just about living through something, she says. It's about what you become while surviving. Sophie appears with more boxes, but stops short, sensing the moment. The four of us stand there, surrounded by the dismantled pieces of a dynasty built on fear and control. I found this too. Ryan pulls something from his pocket. My pearl necklace from our wedding day. Thought you might want it back. I take it, feel its weight. Then I walk to the window, open it, and let the pearls fall. They scatter across the driveway like drops of rain. Mother would call that wasteful, Vivian observes. No, I correct her. She'd call it weak, but she was wrong about a lot of things. Later, as the sun sets on the empty house, I find Charles's journal again. There's a line underlined near the end. The greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in refusing to become them. I leave the journal on Margaret's old desk. Let the next owners find it, or not. Some stories need to end for others to begin. As we lock up for the last time, Vivian pauses on the porch. You know she'll never stop, even from prison. Margaret will try to rebuild. Let her try, I say. We have something stronger than her kind of power now. What's that? I look at Ryan, at Sophie, at the woman who was my enemy and is now something else, something complicated and real. The truth, I answer, and each other. We walk away from the Hamilton estate together, leaving behind empty rooms filled with echoes of vengeance. Some of them might follow us. Some might even catch up one day. But that's tomorrow's survival.
The golden light of sunset filtered through the penthouse windows as I arranged the crystal flutes on the marble bar. Michael's booming laughter echoed from the living room where he entertained his colleagues, the same colleagues who had no idea who really owned this penthouse. Another round, Elise, Michael called out, not bothering to look in my direction. The boys are thirsty. I carried the tray of drinks with practiced grace, my Louboutins clicking softly against the hardwood floors he believed he had selected. The truth was in the details. The Brazilian cherry, not the mahogany he had initially wanted. Like everything else in our life together, what Michael believed was his choice was merely an illusion I had carefully crafted. Gentlemen, I said, placing drinks before each of Michael's associates. The Macallan 25, as requested. Ah, there she is, said Richard, Michael's mentor and the current managing director at Westfield Partners, the investment firm where my husband believed he was on the fast track to partnership. The supportive wife. Michael tells us you do something with art. Curator at that small gallery downtown. Something like that. I smiled, knowing how Richard's eyes never quite met mine. In the 3 years I'd been attending these gatherings, he had never once asked me directly about my work. She keeps herself busy, Michael interjected before I could elaborate, though I keep telling her she doesn't need to work at all. My bonus this year should be more than enough for both of us. The men laughed appreciatively while I maintained my pleasant expression, thinking of the documents waiting in my private office, the one Michael thought was my crafting room. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was indeed crafting something, just not the scrapbooks and photo albums he'd assumed filled my days. How's the Jefferson acquisition coming along? I asked casually, knowing exactly how it was progressing. Michael's smile tightened imperceptibly. Business talk, Elise? I thought we agreed that's not your area. He turned to his colleagues. She gets these ideas from those business magazines she flips through at the salon. More laughter, more knowing glances exchanged between men who believed they were the smartest people in the room. Of course, I conceded with a practiced smile. I'll leave you gentlemen to it. Dinner will be served at 8. As I retreated to the kitchen, I heard Richard's voice. You've got yourself the perfect package there, Michael. Beautiful, gracious, and knows her place. I checked my watch, a vintage Patek Philippe that Michael assumed was a well-made replica. It was 7:15 p.m., which meant Amara would be sending me the final confirmation any minute now. My phone vibrated in my pocket, right on schedule. Everything is set for tomorrow. Board members confirmed. 9 a.m. sharp. I replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji, then returned my attention to the dinner preparations. The Chilean sea bass had been Michael's choice, naturally. He prided himself on his sophisticated palate, another fiction I had carefully nurtured over the years. The man had been eating frozen dinners when I met him. The dinner party proceeded exactly as dozens before it had, Michael dominating the conversation, taking credit for investment insights that weren't his, boasting about possessions purchased with what he believed was his money. The vacation home in Aspen is finally being renovated, he announced over dessert. Elise wanted to use some local designer, but I insisted on bringing in someone from New York. You can't trust these mountain town contractors with a property of that caliber. I had never suggested a local designer. The renovation was being handled by an award-winning Colorado architect whose waiting list stretched 2 years, unless you happen to sit on the board of the foundation that had funded his breakthrough project a decade ago. But Michael needed to believe these decisions were his, that his business acumen extended to every aspect of our lives. More coffee, Richard? I offered, already knowing he would accept. In the 3 years I'd been serving him coffee in my home, he had never once thanked me. Yes, he replied distractedly, his attention fixed on Michael's description of a non-existent investment opportunity in Singapore. I poured the coffee, my mind already focused on tomorrow morning. The Jefferson acquisition that Michael had mentioned so dismissively was, in fact, the cornerstone of what would transpire at Westfield Partners at precisely 9 a.m. The acquisition that the board had entrusted to Michael 6 months ago. The one he had been steadily mismanaging while taking extended lunches with his assistant and claiming exorbitant expenses. The acquisition that I had been quietly salvaging for the past 3 months. After the guests departed and Michael retreated to his study to make what he called an important international call, which I knew was actually to his mistress in the financial district apartment he thought I knew nothing about, I slipped into my private office. The room looked innocuous enough. A large desk with a laptop, several bookshelves filled with art history volumes and business books Michael never bothered to examine, and a comfortable reading chair. What Michael didn't know was that behind the large abstract painting on the far wall, a genuine Rothko that he believed was just a print, was a safe containing documents that would redefine both our futures. I opened my laptop and reviewed the presentation one final time. All the evidence was meticulously organized. The unauthorized expenses, the fabricated client meetings, the deliberate undermining of the Jefferson deal to benefit a competing firm where Michael's brother worked. And of course, the extensive documentation of how I had intervened, working through back channels to save the acquisition that represented nearly 30% of Westfield's projected annual growth. What Michael and his colleagues never bothered to discover was that Elise Chen, the supportive wife who did something with art, was actually Dr. Elise Chen, who held a PhD in economics from Stanford, had written 3 books on investment strategy under a pseudonym, and sat on the boards of 4 major financial institutions, including Westfield's parent company. Michael had met me when I was conducting research for my latest book, temporarily working as a gallery curator as part of my investigation into art market investment patterns. He had assumed that was my career, and I had never corrected him. It had been an experiment at first, seeing how long a supposedly brilliant investment banker would fail to perform even basic due diligence on the woman he was marrying. The experiment had evolved into a case study when I discovered his financial mismanagement and ethical breaches 6 months into our marriage. Rather than confronting him immediately, I had chosen to document everything, to understand the full scope of his deception while maintaining my home. My phone vibrated again. A message from Amara. Richard has reviewed the final documentation. He's shocked and disappointed. His words. I smiled slightly. Richard, the mentor who had never bothered to learn what I actually did, was about to discover just how thoroughly he had underestimated me. My phone buzzed once more. Security protocol in place for tomorrow. Legal team standing by. I responded, perfect. See you at 8:30. I closed my laptop and prepared for bed, listening to Michael's muffled voice from his study. He was still talking to his mistress, making promises about their future together using money he believed he controlled. Tomorrow would bring revelations on multiple fronts. The alarm woke me at 5 a.m. Michael remained asleep, having come to bed well after midnight. I dressed carefully in a Channel suit he had gifted me last Christmas, selected from my own accounts but wrapped with a card in his handwriting. By 5:45 a.m., I was in my car, a sensible Audi that Michael had insisted was appropriate for a gallery curator's wife, not knowing about the Maserati I kept at my private office across town. I drove directly to Westfield Partners, arriving before most of the administrative staff. My access card, granted to me as a board member of the parent company but unknown to Michael, let me into the executive suite where Amara waited. Good morning, Dr. Chen, she greeted me formally. The boardroom is prepared and all members will arrive by 8:30. Mr. Coleman has been asked to come in early for what he believes is a pre-meeting about his partnership track. Thank you, Amara, I replied, setting my briefcase on the conference table. And the documentation, distributed to all board members yesterday evening as requested, the evidence is compelling. I nodded, taking a moment to look out over the city skyline. The morning sun reflected off the glass towers of the financial district, including the building where Michael's mistress lived and the apartment he had leased under a shell company. A company registered to an address that happened to be a property owned by one of my investment groups. At 7:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Heading into an early meeting about partnership. Don't wait up tonight, we'll be celebrating. I didn't respond. He would find out soon enough where I was. By 8:45 a.m., the boardroom had filled with Westfield's executive team and several members of the parent company's board. They spoke in hushed tones, reviewing the documents I had provided. Michael was scheduled to arrive at 9 a.m. sharp, believing he was about to be offered the partnership position he had been pursuing for years. At 8:55 a.m., Richard approached me, his expression a mixture of contrition and professional assessment. Dr. Chen, he began, using my proper title for the first time. I must admit, that is to say, Michael never indicated that I was more than his supportive wife. I finished for him. No, I don't imagine he did. The evidence you've compiled is irrefutable, Richard continued, regaining his composure. The board is prepared to take immediate action. Thank you, Richard, I replied evenly, and the Jefferson acquisition. The steps you took to salvage it were remarkable. Unorthodox, but remarkably effective. The board is unanimously impressed with your intervention. I nodded acknowledgement just as the boardroom door opened. Michael entered with the confident stride of a man who believed he was about to achieve everything he had ever wanted. He froze when he saw me sitting at the head of the conference table. Elise? Confusion flickered across his face. What are you doing here? Hello, Michael, I greeted him calmly. Please, take a seat. We have much to discuss. His eyes darted around the room, noting the sullen expressions of the board members, the folders open before each of them containing evidence of his misconduct. What is this? He demanded, a note of panic entering his voice. Richard, what's going on? Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. Michael, I believe you know Dr. Elise Chen, though perhaps not as well as you thought. Dr. Chen sits on the board of our parent company and has brought some concerning matters to our attention. Michael's face paled as he turned back to me. Doctor? Board member? What is this, some kind of joke? No joke, Michael. I replied, gesturing to the chair across from me. Please sit down. I've prepared a comprehensive overview of your activities regarding the Jefferson acquisition, your expense accounts, and your relationship with competing firms. The board would like your response. My relationship with... He stopped abruptly, the full implications beginning to dawn on him. You can't possibly know about your arrangement with your brother at Meridian Capital, about your deliberate undermining of the Jefferson deal, about the apartment on Fifth Avenue where you meet Jessica 3 times a week. I opened the folder before me. I know everything, Michael. I've known from the beginning. Michael sank into the chair, his confident facade crumbling. How? You never asked what I actually did before we met. I explained calmly. You assumed I was just a gallery curator with no head for business. You never questioned how I could afford the lifestyle we maintain on what you believed was your salary alone. But the house, the cars, the vacations, all mine, Michael. The penthouse was purchased through my investment group 3 years before we met. The vacation home in Aspen belongs to my family trust. Even your Rolex was selected and purchased by me, though you've spent years telling everyone about the incredible deal you negotiated. The boardroom remained silent as Michael struggled to comprehend the extent of his misapprehension. Michael Coleman, Richard spoke formally now, based on the evidence presented by Dr. Chen and corroborated by our internal investigation. Your employment with Westfield Partners is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to clear out your personal belongings. As if on cue, 2 security officers entered the boardroom. This is ridiculous, Michael protested weakly. You can't just, Elise, tell them this is a mistake. No mistake, Michael, I replied, sliding a document across the table. These are divorce papers. Given the documented evidence of your financial misconduct and infidelity, my attorneys anticipate a straightforward process. Michael stared at the papers, then at me, genuine bewilderment in his eyes. Why? Why go through all this? Why marry me if you knew who I was? I didn't know at first, I admitted. But 6 months in, when I discovered your first indiscretion, I had a choice. Confront you immediately or understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I chose the latter. Consider it professional curiosity. Professional curiosity, he repeated hollowly. 3 years of marriage is some kind of research project. Not entirely, I closed my folder. It was also a lesson in due diligence. You never once researched who I really was. Never questioned where the money came from. Never wondered why a simple gallery curator could afford the life we led. As security prepared to escort him out, I added, one more thing, Michael. The dinner party last night? All those colleagues you were so eager to impress. They've all received detailed reports this morning about your activities. Transparency is so important in our industry, don't you think? The aftermath unfolded with the precision of a well-planned investment strategy. Michael's termination made minimal waves in the financial press, overshadowed by the announcement of Westfield's successful completion of the Jefferson acquisition, a deal now attributed to the strategic intervention of parent company board member Dr. Elise Chen. The divorce proceedings concluded swiftly, with Michael receiving exactly what he had brought into the marriage: his clothes, personal effects, and the realization that he had spent 3 years living in a reality carefully constructed to reveal his true character. 6 months later, I hosted a small gathering in my penthouse, the same space where Michael had once held court with his colleagues. The guest list was different now, women from various industries, many of whom had experienced similar underestimation throughout their careers. The key, I told them as we enjoyed the view of the city lights, isn't proving people wrong immediately. Sometimes the most powerful position is being underestimated, watching, learning, and choosing precisely when to reveal your true capability. My phone buzzed with a message from Amara. Meridian Capital Board just approved the merger. You're now effectively Michael's boss's boss's boss. I smiled slightly and set my phone aside. To being underestimated, I raised my glass in a toast, and to revealing the truth at exactly the right moment. The women around me lifted their glasses, each understanding in her own way the power that comes from being the quiet one in the room, the one no one thinks to watch until it's too late. The air froze with the words, "A grandchild from a middle school graduate is a disgrace to the family." A heavy silence fell over the room, and my heart pounded like a trapped dove. Harold clenched his fists, his face a mask of fury. Apparently, my mother-in-law had been investigating my educational background. I was speechless, caught off guard by this revelation. Unable to bear the suffocating atmosphere, Harold took my hand and pulled me away. As we left, Heather, my mother-in-law's voice followed us, sharp and condescending. "Well, before you give birth to that child, make sure you pass the GED test or something. At least get a high school equivalency diploma. It's a requirement for being part of our family." Later that night, Heather called. Should I send you some GED prep books? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I was appalled that she was still harping on the same topic. Exasperation filled me, but I managed to suppress a sigh and reply calmly, in that case, I'll quit being your daughter-in-law. At first, Heather laughed, not believing the words I said. But as the realization of our intentions dawned on her, her attitude changed abruptly. What? What do you mean? She sputtered, her voice laced with disbelief and panic. The truth was, we had a plan. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm a 28-year-old homemaker. I reconnected with my husband Harold at a bar. Emily? A voice called out, and I turned to see a man I had met at a social gathering some time ago. Harold? I asked tentatively. Harold's face lit up with recognition as he sat down next to me. I thought it was you. Your posture is so elegant and your hair is so beautiful. You haven't changed a bit since that time. At first, I thought he was just flattering me because he was a bit tipsy, but from that day on, we started contacting each other, and soon we were going on dates. A year had passed since our reunion when Harold suddenly confessed his feelings for me. You know, I just realized that I never actually asked you out. I like you, Emily. Will you go out with me? His confession, delivered in the middle of a lazy Sunday afternoon at home, caught me completely off guard. I couldn't help but laugh. Now that you mention it, you never did ask me out, I said. But I'm happy. I like you too, Harold. I'm looking forward to being with you. Me too, Harold replied, his face beaming with joy. Having lived a life devoid of romance, I was thrilled by this newfound feeling. But my happiness was short-lived. A few months into our relationship, Harold asked me to meet his mother. I don't mind you meeting her, but my mom is very particular about who I date. She's been pestering me to bring you home, so I finally gave in. I had a feeling that his mother wasn't the easiest person to get along with, but I agreed to meet her. A week later, I found myself face to face with my future mother-in-law. She looked me up and down, her eyes filled with judgment. Well, I give you a 4.5, she said. I was taken aback by her balloon assessment. Harold immediately came to my defense. Mom, stop it. You did the same thing to my last girlfriend, and we ended up breaking up. Why do you have to be so condescending? But his words fell on deaf ears. She's going to be part of our family, so it's only natural for me to have some standards. Besides, a daughter-in-law is supposed to be bullied by her mother-in-law. That's how they grow. I was raised that way by my mother-in-law, so what's wrong with me doing the same? Her nonchalant attitude left me speechless. I realized that there was no point in arguing with her, as our values were clearly different. Sensing my decision, Harold stopped trying to reason with his mother. We exchanged a look, and he decided it was best to cut our visit short. Later that night, Harold apologized profusely. I'm so sorry, Emily, he said, his voice filled with remorse. I didn't want you to go through that. I knelt in front of him and gently took his hands. Don't apologize, Harold. It's not your fault. I don't want to see you like this. You're marrying me, not your mother. Harold looked up, his eyes filled with tears. At that moment, I knew that he was a wonderful man who truly cared about me, and so I decided to marry him. Harold, I said, let's get married. I can support you, and you're the only one who can support me. It might be difficult to register our marriage right away, but I hope we can do it someday. Harold's eyes widened in surprise. Emily, you beat me to it, he said, a smile spreading across his face. He pulled out a small box containing a silver ring. I was going to propose to you, he said, slipping the ring onto my finger. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized that Harold was the only partner for me in this world. I immediately said yes. From that day on, we were more than just lovers. We were engaged. We moved in together and started planning our future. Harold was a responsible man who did his share of the housework. We talked openly and divided the chores fairly. At first, I was worried that living together might reveal some unpleasant aspects of Harold's personality, but my fears were unfounded. Harold was Harold through and through. He was my biggest supporter, always there for me no matter what. He was also respectful of my opinions and feelings. I knew I had made the right decision in choosing him as my partner. A year after we started living together, we finally tied the knot. We were overjoyed, but we also knew that we had a hurdle to overcome. Well, so this is the girl. She's pretty, but she seems a bit unreliable. I'll have to train her properly. When we informed her of our marriage, she made it clear that she didn't approve, but she also seemed resigned to the fact that there was nothing she could do about it. Harold looked like he wanted to retort, but he kept his promise to me. On our way to her house, I had asked him not to argue with his mother. It's not worth it. She'll just keep repeating herself, and she won't listen to anything we have to say. So please, for the sake of our future together, just let it go. Harold had agreed, albeit reluctantly, and so we endured my mother-in-law's insults and criticisms in silence. After about an hour, she finally grew tired of berating us and told us we could leave. We practically ran to the car, and Harold didn't let out a breath until we were out of sight. I can't believe how awful she is. I forced a smile. She's definitely got a few quirks, but you promised to keep our interactions with her to a minimum. That's enough for me. Let's focus on building our own happy memories together. Harold smiled, and I knew that we would be okay. 6 months into our marriage, I noticed a change in myself. Harold, I think I need to change the laundry detergent. The scent is too strong for me now. Harold looked at me in confusion. But it's the same detergent we've always used. I haven't changed a thing. Suddenly it hit me. I'm late. Harold's eyes widened. Wait here, he said, rushing out the door. He returned a few minutes later with a pregnancy test, and the result was positive. We're going to have a baby. Harold collapsed onto the floor, his face pale. Are you okay? I asked, concerned. I can't believe it, he stammered. We're going to have a baby. He was so overjoyed that he literally couldn't stand up. I couldn't help but laugh. You that happy? I asked. Harold blushed and looked away, but I could see the joy radiating from him. I was so happy to have such a wonderful husband. But pregnancy wasn't all sunshine and roses. I suffered from severe morning sickness, and I couldn't stand the smell of anything. I was constantly throwing up, and I ended up being hospitalized for a while. It was a difficult first trimester, but I eventually made it to the second trimester, and my morning sickness subsided. I was able to resume my normal life, but a new problem arose. We've already told my parents about the baby, I said to Harold one day. But what about your mother? If you want, we can wait until after the baby is born. Harold offered, but I shook my head. No, we can't do that. She's going to be the baby's grandmother whether she likes it or not. If we wait until after the baby is born, she'll just use it as an excuse to criticize us. So let's tell her now, while I'm still in my second trimester. Harold agreed, and we started planning our visit to his mother's house. But it didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped. You want to visit us? My mother-in-law said, her voice laced with suspicion. Well, in that case, New Year's Eve will be fine. All the relatives and extended family will be gathered here then. Harold tried to reason with her. We just want to have a quick chat, he said. There's no need for everyone to be there. But his mother was adamant. Nonsense, she said. It's a joyous occasion, and we should share it with everyone. Besides, it's not like the relatives are strangers. I had a bad feeling about this. Maybe it was just my pregnancy hormones, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. The day finally arrived, and we found ourselves at my mother-in-law's house, surrounded by relatives. Everyone was drinking, eating, and having a good time. Suddenly, Heather clapped her hands, drawing everyone's attention. Attention, everyone, she announced. My daughter-in-law has an announcement to make. She grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet. I winced as her grip tightened. Harold immediately intervened. Don't grab her so hard, he said. His mother glared at him, but she quickly regained her composure. Anyway, she continued, they have some happy news to share. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Actually, we. But before I could finish my sentence, my mother-in-law cut me off. A grandchild from a middle school graduate is a disgrace to the family, she declared. The room fell silent. Harold's fists clenched. Oblivious to the tension, Heather continued. As a member of our family, you should at least have a decent education, she said. I had to do some research, and I found out that you're a middle school dropout. In this day and age, that's simply unacceptable. She looked at me with contempt. I was mortified. Not only had she exposed my secret, but she had done so in front of all of our relatives. I was speechless. Harold couldn't take it anymore. Mom, I can't believe you're such a horrible person, he said, his voice shaking with anger. Emily, I'm so sorry. Let's get out of here. He took my hand and led me out of the room. As we left, my mother-in-law called after us. Well, before you give birth to that child, Make sure you pass the GED test or something, she said. At least get a high school equivalency diploma. It's a requirement for being part of our family. We ignored her and left. Later that night, my mother-in-law called. Should I send you some GED prep books? She asked. I sighed. In that case, I'll quit being your daughter-in-law, I said. Heather laughed. What are you talking about? She asked. You're married to Harold, so you're a part of our family now. You can't just quit. You're thinking that being married means that the man is in charge and you're just there to serve him and his family, right? I asked. Heather was silent. There's another way, I continued. We can get a divorce, and then we can get remarried. That way, I won't be your daughter-in-law anymore. Heather was stunned. No, you can't do that, she said. Harold is our eldest son. He's the heir to our family. If you divorce him, he'll leave our family. I rolled my eyes. In this day and age, no one cares about family names, I said. Besides, it was Harold's idea to change his name. Heather's jaw dropped. Harold? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. You want to change your name? Harold took the phone from me. Mom, I've had enough, he said. I've been listening to your nonsense for years. You only care about me because I'm your heir. Well, I don't care about any of that. I'm going to divorce Emily and change my name, and then we're going to get remarried. Heather pleaded with him to reconsider, but Harold was adamant. He hung up the phone and blocked her number. A few days later, we went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. Then we filed for marriage again. The only thing that changed was Harold's last name. It was a bit of a hassle to update all of our documents, but we eventually got used to it. About a month later, my mother-in-law showed up at our doorstep. She was out of breath, and her face was pale. Emily, she said, I'm sorry for everything I've done. Please come back to our family. I won't bother you anymore, and I'll keep sending you money. Harold and I exchanged a look. Then we both burst out laughing. Heather's face turned red. What's so funny? She asked. You're so naive, I said. You said you did a background check on me, but you didn't even know what I do for a living. Heather was silent. You see, I'm the CEO of a very famous apparel brand, I continued, and I've been sending you $30,000 a month. Heather's eyes widened in shock. You're the one who's been sending the money, she asked. Why? You know why, I said. You were spending all your husband's money and you were afraid he would find out. So you asked us to send you money so you could secretly save it. Heather was speechless. You're a perfect daughter-in-law, she finally said. I'm so proud of you. I smiled. Actually, I can't give you a score, I said. You're all negative. Heather's face crumpled. How dare you talk to me like that? She shrieked. I don't want you in our family anymore. Harold, divorce her and come home right now. Just then, Harold's father appeared. That's enough, he said. I've heard everything. I'm divorcing you. Heather was stunned. But, she stammered. I have nowhere to go. I have no money. I'm useless. Everyone in the room stared at her in disgust. You spent all your money, Harold's father said. You can't blame anyone else for that, and you can't rely on our money anymore. You're on your own. Heather shrank back, defeated. Harold's father apologized to us for his wife's behavior. He promised to take her away and make sure she never bothered us again. We were relieved. Heather did end up getting a divorce. She tried to refuse, but Harold's father was adamant. I'm too old to get a divorce, she had wailed. It's so embarrassing. Everyone will laugh at me, and I have no money. Harold's father had simply laughed. You only care about what other people think and about money, he had said. You don't care about me at all, so go find someone else to leech off of. Heather had no choice but to agree to the divorce. She was kicked out of the house and forced to get a job, but she couldn't keep a job for long. She was caught stealing money from the cash register and was fired. She ended up homeless and had to rely on welfare. Harold and I were saddened by her downfall, but we knew there was nothing we could do. We were happy to be free of her. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and Harold and I are now busy raising our child. Parenting is hard work, but it's also very rewarding. We were so happy to be parents. Harold is a wonderful father, and he's always there to support me. I'm so grateful to have him in my life. Harold's father often visits us and plays with his granddaughter. He's a great-grandfather, and we're so happy to have him in our lives too. We're a happy family, and we're looking forward to the future. One day, I had some news to share with Harold. Harold, I said, I have some good news and some bad news. Which you want to hear first? The bad news, Harold said. I haven't been feeling well lately, I said. Harold looked concerned. What's wrong? He asked. I shook my head. I'm pregnant, I said. Harold's eyes widened. We're having another baby, he asked. I nodded. I already got the maternity handbook, I said. We're going to be a family of 4. Harold hugged me tightly. Our daughter, who was now a toddler, giggled and clapped her hands. I smiled. I was so happy to be starting a new chapter in our lives. I knew that we would continue to be a happy and loving family. The moment I stepped into the Callaway Gallery's grand opening gala, conversations faltered and heads turned. I wore vintage Chanel, a deliberate choice, the same designer Victoria Callaway had worn the night she told me I had provincial talent and rejected my collection. 7 years later, I watched her champagne glass freeze midway to her lips as recognition dawned. Her gallery was now my gallery, though she wouldn't learn that particular detail for another hour. Olivia Montgomery, she breathed, composing herself quickly. What an unexpected surprise. Victoria. I replied with a smile that revealed nothing of the satisfaction coursing through me. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. The confusion in her eyes was delicious. Why would the artist she'd so publicly dismissed return to celebrate her triumph? But Victoria had always excelled at maintaining appearances. She kissed the air beside my cheek and moved on to greet other guests, though I noticed her gaze returning to me repeatedly throughout the evening. She had no idea that I wasn't just attending her gallery opening. I was orchestrating its final act. 7 years earlier, I had been a promising young artist fresh out of graduate school. My mixed media work had caught the attention of several smaller galleries, and when Victoria Callaway, the most influential gallery owner in the city, requested a meeting, it felt like destiny. Victoria represented artists who went on to international acclaim. Her endorsement could launch careers overnight. I spent weeks preparing my portfolio, selecting pieces that showcased both technical skill and conceptual depth. The morning of our meeting, I arrived at the Callaway's original gallery space downtown, a converted warehouse with soaring ceilings and perfect light. Victoria kept me waiting for 45 minutes before her assistant led me into her minimalist office. What followed was not the career discussion I had anticipated, but a calculated humiliation. Victoria flipped through my portfolio with increasing impatience, occasionally making dismissive sounds. Finally, she closed it and slid it back across her desk. Your technique is adequate, she said, but these lack vision. There's nothing here that hasn't been done before, and better. She sighed as though my mediocrity personally exhausted her. You have provincial talent, Ms. Montgomery. Perhaps that would be enough in a smaller market, but here, she gestured vaguely at the window, at the city beyond. Here we require exceptional. I left with my portfolio clutched to my chest, face burning. But worse was to come. Somehow, Victoria's assessment became common knowledge in the art community. Galleries that had previously expressed interest now returned my calls with polite rejections. A review of a group show where I exhibited a single piece mentioned my technically proficient but uninspired work, confirming Callaway's recent assessment. In one afternoon, Victoria had effectively ended my career before it had truly begun. Not because my work lacked merit, but because she could. Because power in the art world was currency, and Victoria enjoyed spending hers. I retreated to my tiny studio apartment, alternating between despair and rage. For 2 weeks, I barely slept or ate. Then one morning, I woke with startling clarity. If I couldn't succeed as the artist I'd imagined being, I would become something else entirely. First, I took a job at a commercial art consulting firm that placed artwork in corporate offices and hotels. It wasn't glamorous, but it provided stability and, more importantly, connections. I learned how the business side of art functioned, the financials behind galleries, the relationships between collectors and institutions, the market forces that determine value. Meanwhile, I continued creating art under a pseudonym, Alexandra Reed. I developed a style distinct from my previous work, bolder, more provocative, with a hint of satire of the art world itself. Without the burden of my own rejected name, I found a new freedom. Alexandra's pieces began appearing in small galleries, receiving positive attention. 3 years in, I made a crucial connection through my consulting work. Eleanor Walsh, a wealthy widow with an exceptional art collection and a personal grudge against Victoria Calloway, who had once dismissed her late husband's collection as new money without taste. Over lunches and gallery visits, Eleanor and I developed a friendship based on mutual appreciation and eventually mutual purpose. Victoria's overextended herself with this new gallery space, Eleanor mentioned during one of our meetings. The location is prime, but the renovation costs were astronomical. She's been approaching several investors, including some old friends of mine. This casual comment became the seed of what would follow. With Eleanor's guidance, I began investigating Victoria's financial situation. The prestigious Calloway Gallery, it seemed, was built on increasingly shaky ground. Victoria had leveraged her existing properties to finance her ambitious new flagship location, a renovated historic building in the Arts District. Eleanor introduced me to other collectors and investors who had their own reasons to distrust Victoria, artists she had abandoned when more marketable options came along, partners she had undermined, collectors she had misled about provenance or value. Carefully, methodically, we formed a consortium, pooling resources to acquire the loans Victoria had taken out. During this time, Alexandra Reed's reputation continued to grow. A solo show at a respected mid-tier gallery sold out. Critics noted her refreshing perspective and incisive commentary on artistic valuation. Victoria, always alert to emerging talent she could profit from, sent her assistant to approach Alexandra about representation. I declined through an intermediary, citing scheduling conflicts. The irony was almost too perfect. 4 years after Victoria had dismissed my work, I had accumulated enough capital, financial, social, and artistic, to execute the final phase of my plan. Our consortium, officially named Meridian Arts Investment but composed of individuals Victoria had alienated over the years, acquired controlling interests in the property company that owned Victoria's new gallery building. Simultaneously, we purchased the majority of her outstanding loans, which were coming due just as the expenses for the grand opening were peaking. Victoria, always more concerned with appearances than financial details, had no idea that her creditors had changed. She was too focused on ensuring that the Calloway Gallery's grand reopening would cement her status as the city's premier art powerhouse. Which brings us back to the opening night, with Victoria circulating among wealthy collectors and influential critics, unaware that everything was about to change. An hour into the event, just after Victoria had finished her speech thanking her partners and supporters, Eleanor nodded to me. It was time. I approached Victoria as she stood alone briefly, surveying her domain. Spectacular space, I commented, gesturing at the vaulted ceilings and dramatic lighting. You must be very proud. It's exceeded even my expectations, she agreed, unable to resist a moment of genuine pleasure. The perfect showcase for truly exceptional talent. Yes, I said, that's what we thought too. Her eyes narrowed at the we, sensing something beneath my words. I'm sorry. Meridian Arts Investment, I clarified. We're very pleased with how you've developed the property. The slight tightening around her eyes was the only indication that she recognized the name of her new creditor. You're with Meridian? I wasn't aware they sent representatives to openings. Oh, I'm not just a representative, I replied, keeping my voice conversational. I'm the managing partner. We acquired your building loans last year, and as of this week, we own controlling interest in this property. I took a sip of champagne, enjoying the rare sight of Victoria Calloway at a loss for words. I wanted to deliver our decision personally. We're making some changes to the gallery program, effective immediately. Victoria regained her composure quickly. I had to admire her for that. Whatever changes you're planning will have to wait. I have a 5-year lease and a full exhibition calendar. Actually, your financing agreement includes a change of ownership clause with remarkably flexible terms for the creditor, I said. Your attention to detail has always been more aesthetic than contractual, hasn't it? The color drained from her face as understanding dawned. You can't just walk in and. We're not walking in, Victoria. We've been here all along, waiting for the investments to mature. I handed her an envelope I'd been carrying in my clutch. These are the terms of our new arrangement. You'll be staying on in a curatorial capacity, but major decisions will require board approval. Our board. She snatched the envelope, face flushed. Who exactly is behind this? Hammond? The Wilsons? Which of my competitors put you up to this power play? I smiled, The moment I had imagined for years finally arriving. No competitor, Victoria. Just someone who once showed you a portfolio that you deemed provincial. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by disbelief. This is about that. A business critique from years ago? My God, the pettiness. Not petty, I corrected her. Strategic. You taught me an invaluable lesson that day. Art isn't just about talent, it's about power. Who has it, who doesn't, and what happens when those positions reverse? I glanced around the gallery, filled with influential people who would soon learn about the change in leadership. I believe the first exhibition under new management will be opening in 6 weeks. A debut solo show by Alexandra Reed. Victoria's eyes widened. You're the artist you dismissed and the owner who just acquired your gallery. Life does have a certain symmetry, doesn't it? The remainder of the evening unfolded like a choreographed performance. Victoria maintained a brittle smile as my consortium partners gradually revealed themselves to key guests. By midnight, the narrative had shifted. The powerful Callaway Gallery was now under new management, with a focus on supporting diverse voices in the art world. In the months that followed, Victoria adapted to her reduced role with as much grace as her nature allowed. The gallery, renamed Montgomery Contemporary, built a reputation for discovering exceptional talent overlooked by more established institutions. Alexandra Reed's exhibition was a critical and commercial success, though I eventually retired the pseudonym, having made my point. Victoria and I developed a working relationship based on mutual respect, if not warmth. She had an undeniable eye for talent when not clouded by power dynamics, and I had learned enough about the business to value genuine expertise. 3 years after the takeover, at the opening of an exhibition featuring young artists from underserved communities, Victoria approached me at the bar. It's a strong show, she said, no trace of condescension in her voice. That piece in the East Gallery, the textile installation. The artist has something special. I thought you'd appreciate that one, I replied. She reminds me a bit of myself at that age. Victoria studied me over the rim of her glass. Would you have built all this without me? Without what I said to you? I considered the question seriously. I would have been a different artist, perhaps a successful one in conventional terms. But this, I gestured around us at the thriving gallery, the diverse crowd of artists and patrons. This required understanding how power actually works in our world. So in a way, I should thank you. She smiled thinly. You're welcome, though I prefer this method of gratitude to the alternative. That night, after the guests had departed, I walked through the quiet gallery, considering the journey from that humiliating rejection to this moment. The victory was not in the acquisition itself, nor in Victoria's diminished status, but in the space we had created, one where talent could be recognized regardless of pedigree or connections. Last week, a young artist came to my office, nervous and clutching a portfolio similar to the one I had once presented to Victoria. Her work was raw but showed remarkable promise. I'm not sure if it's good enough, she said, watching anxiously as I reviewed her pieces. My professor said I should try smaller galleries first, work my way up. I closed the portfolio and handed it back to her. Your professor is operating on an outdated assumption that gatekeepers determine value. Your work has vision and technical skill. More importantly, it has something to say. We'd be honored to include 2 pieces in our Emerging Artists exhibition next month. The look of stunned joy on her face reminded me of why I had built Montgomery Contemporary, not just as a vehicle for personal vindication, but as a reimagining of what an art institution could be. Power in the art world is still currency. But now I spend mine differently than Victoria did. Each time we elevate an overlooked voice or challenge established hierarchies, it compounds the most satisfying return on investment, change. As for Victoria, she's still part of the gallery, though in a capacity that requires her to mentor rather than judge. Sometimes I catch her watching me with a look that suggests she's still trying to reconcile the dismissed artist with the businesswoman who outmaneuvered her. I don't mind. Some lessons take longer to learn than others. And the portfolio she rejected? I had it rebound in leather and display it in my office, not as a reminder of rejection, but as evidence that endings are rarely what they appear to be. Sometimes they're just the first brushstroke on a much larger canvas. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. In my case, it took precisely 5 years to prepare. and I served it on a gleaming silver platter in the executive boardroom of Meridian Publishing. The look on Daniel Crawford's face when I slid the acquisition papers across the polished mahogany table was worth every moment of patience. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as he stared at the company letterhead that now bore my name. I smiled, savoring the moment I'd imagined countless times. "No mistake, Daniel. Effective immediately, I am the majority owner of Meridian Publishing. Your services as CEO are no longer required. But I should start at the beginning. My name is Rebecca Chen. 6 years ago, I was the rising star at Meridian Publishing, one of the city's most prestigious independent publishing houses. Founded in the 1950s, Meridian had a reputation for literary excellence and discovering extraordinary new voices. I joined as an editorial assistant and worked my way up to senior editor by age 30, building a portfolio of award-winning authors and commercial successes. Daniel Crawford was Meridian's golden boy, the founder's nephew who'd been groomed for leadership since college. With his perfect suits, Ivy League education, and practiced charm, he looked the part of a publishing executive. What he lacked in actual editing experience or literary instinct, he made up for in confidence and connections. When the founder, Eleanor Meridian, announced her retirement, everyone assumed Daniel would take over as CEO. But in her final act of leadership, Eleanor surprised everyone by announcing a merit-based succession plan. For 1 year, both Daniel and I would oversee different divisions of the company. At the end of that period, the board would evaluate our performance and select the new CEO. "Publishing is changing," Eleanor told us over dinner at her elegant brownstone. "Meridian needs leadership that understands both tradition and innovation. I believe in fair competition." She raised her glass, her eyes twinkling. "May the best publisher win." I worked tirelessly that year. I revitalized our digital strategy, launched a successful podcast featuring our authors, and signed 3 debut novelists who went on to become bestsellers. My division's profits increased by 22%, while maintaining the literary quality that had always been Meridian's hallmark. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on appearances. He hosted lavish parties for the literary elite, gave interviews about the future of publishing, and cultivated relationships with board members. His division's performance was respectable but unexceptional. As the board's decision approached, I felt cautiously optimistic. The numbers were on my side. Several board members had expressed appreciation for my innovative approaches. Even some of Daniel's allies had begun to recognize my contributions. The night before the announcement, Eleanor called me. "You've done remarkable work, Rebecca," she said. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that." I should have recognized the warning in her words. The next morning, the board announced Daniel Crawford as Meridian's new CEO. While both candidates demonstrated exceptional qualities, the board chair read from a prepared statement, "We believe Daniel's vision for Meridian's future aligns more closely with the company's heritage and long-term interests." Later, I learned that Daniel had spent the final weeks before the decision spreading rumors about my radical plans to dismantle Meridian's legacy. He suggested I would sacrifice quality for commercial success, that I lacked respect for the company's history. He even implied I was planning to leave for a competitor if not selected, making me a risky choice. None of it was true, but the whisper campaign had worked. 3 key board members had changed their votes at the last minute. Daniel wasted no time establishing his authority. Within a month, he'd reorganized the editorial department, diluting my responsibilities and promoting his allies. He took credit for my digital initiatives while dismissing the authors I championed as niche interests. When I challenged him in meetings, he would smile indulgently and talk about the bigger picture that perhaps you don't see from your position. 6 months into Daniel's leadership, he called me into his office, my former mentor Eleanor's office, now redecorated with modern art and sleek furniture that erased her presence. "Rebecca, I value your contributions," he began, his tone suggesting exactly the opposite. "But I think it's time we discuss your future at Meridian." The discussion was brief and one-sided. My position was being eliminated in a restructuring. I was being offered a lesser role with a significant pay cut or a severance package. The message was clear. Daniel wanted me gone but preferred I leave voluntarily. "I'm giving you the courtesy of a choice because of your history with the company," he said, his practiced sympathy not reaching his eyes. I maintained my composure, thanked him for his consideration, and said I would need time to think about it. Back in my office, I closed the door and allowed myself exactly 5 minutes to feel the full force of my anger and disappointment. Then I began to plan. The next day, I accepted the severance package with a grace that clearly surprised Daniel. I even agreed to his suggestion of announcing that I was leaving to pursue other opportunities. I smiled through the awkward goodbye gathering, accepted a parting gift I would later donate unopened, and walked out of Meridian Publishing with nothing but my reputation and a determination that this would not be the end of my story. What happened next must have seemed predictable to Daniel. I started a small literary agency. This fit his narrative. The editor who couldn't handle the business side of publishing retreating to a safer, smaller role in the industry. What he didn't know was that this was merely phase one of a longer strategy. My agency, Phoenix Literary, quickly gained a reputation for discovering exceptional new talent and for its innovative approach to author development. I brought on talented editors who had been overlooked or undervalued at larger houses. We embraced digital platforms and non-traditional publishing models alongside traditional approaches. Within 2 years, Phoenix represented some of the most exciting voices in literature. During this time, I maintained cordial relationships with Meridian's editors, many of whom had been my colleagues. I heard about Daniel's increasingly erratic leadership, his focus on splashy acquisitions over sustainable growth, his alienation of longtime authors. Under his direction, Meridian was still prestigious, but increasingly unstable. What Daniel also didn't know was that I had been meeting regularly with Eleanor Meridian, who had watched the company's evolution with growing concern. Though she no longer had operational control, she still held significant shares, as did several founding family members who trusted her judgment. I made a mistake, she told me over tea in her garden 3 years after my departure. I should have been more explicit about my wishes for the company's future. The board misinterpreted my silence as endorsement. Meanwhile, I had been carefully investing my earnings and building relationships with select investors who shared my vision for what publishing could be. With Eleanor's guidance, I began quietly purchasing available Meridian stock whenever it came on the market. The opportunity I had been waiting for arrived when Daniel made his most ambitious move yet, attempting to acquire a smaller rival publisher using primarily debt financing. The deal would have given him control of several prestigious literary prizes and a valuable backlist, but the financial structure was precarious at best. 2 board members resigned in protest of the acquisition, citing concerns about Meridian's financial stability. The company's stock dropped on the news, creating the perfect moment for my final move. Working with Eleanor and a group of aligned investors, I accumulated enough additional shares to gain controlling interest in Meridian Publishing. The legal team coordinated the transaction perfectly, ensuring that Daniel had no warning until it was complete. Which brings us back to that boardroom, Daniel staring at the acquisition papers in disbelief, and my calm announcement that his services were no longer required. "This is impossible," he repeated, looking around the table at board members who had already been briefed about the change in ownership. "You can't just walk in here and take over." "Actually, that's exactly what I've done," I replied. Though unlike some leadership transitions, this one is based entirely on merit and transparent financial transactions. The board chair, who had supported my original candidacy years earlier, cleared his throat. "Daniel, the ownership documents are in order. Ms. Chen now holds controlling interest in Meridian Publishing." Daniel's face flushed. "This is about revenge. You've held a grudge all these years." "This is about stewardship," I interrupted, my voice level. "Meridian deserves leadership that respects its legacy while embracing its future. The company's declining performance under your direction speaks for itself." I slid a second document across the table. "Your severance package. I believe you'll find it fair. You have until the end of the week to clear your office." The restructuring of Meridian took time, but the publishing industry is ultimately built on relationships, and those I had cultivated served me well. We retained the company's commitment to literary excellence while expanding into new markets and formats. Many talented editors who had left during Daniel's tenure returned, bringing valuable authors with them. Eleanor Meridian attended the company's 70th anniversary celebration, beaming as she raised a toast. To Rebecca Chin, who understood that true leadership is about building something that outlasts you. Daniel. He launched a literary consultancy that struggled for 2 years before folding. Last I heard, he had taken a position at his father-in-law's investment firm, far from the publishing world. 6 months ago, a young editor came to my office seeking advice. She had been passed over for promotion despite outstanding performance, while her less qualified male colleague had advanced. "How do you handle the unfairness?" she asked, frustration evident in her voice. "How do you not let it consume you?" I considered the question carefully, thinking of the 5 years I had spent working toward a goal that had sometimes seemed impossible. "Channel it," I told her. "Use that energy not for anger, but for focus. Create something so undeniably excellent that it becomes impossible to ignore. And remember that sometimes the direct path isn't the only path, or even the best one." She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Also," I added with a small smile, "keep meticulous records. Documentation is power." As she left my office with renewed determination, I turned to the window overlooking the city where I had lost and then regained my professional home. On my desk sat a small wooden box Eleanor had given me, containing the original Meridian Publishing logo stamped from 1952. "Publishing is about legacy," she had said when presenting it to me. "About whose stories get told and who gets to tell them." In the end, I realized that was what my own journey had been about too, not just reclaiming what was taken from me, but ensuring that the right stories and the right storytellers would always have a home. 3 days before the opening ceremony of Madison Gardens, I stood in the marble foyer watching my Uncle William's expression transform from smug condescension to utter disbelief. The color draining from his face as the reality of his situation became clear. All those years of undermining me, of dismissing my abilities and ambitions, they had led to this perfectly orchestrated moment of revelation. "This is some kind of joke," he managed to say, his voice lacking its usual authoritative edge. I smiled, feeling the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. "No joke, Uncle William. Just the culmination of very careful planning." His eyes darted around the restored lobby, taking in the original crown molding we painstakingly recreated, the chandeliers that matched my grandfather's vision, and the faces of board members watching this long overdue reckoning. But perhaps I should begin at the beginning. My name is Eliza Bennett. I was 28 when my grandfather, Henry Bennett, passed away, leaving behind a complex legacy and a complicated family dynamic. Grandfather had built Bennett Developments from nothing, transforming it into one of the city's most respected property companies. I remember him as a tall figure with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Every Sunday, he would take me for walks through the city, pointing out buildings and sharing stories. "Each building has a soul, Eliza," he would say. "It's our job to make sure that soul serves the people inside it." Everyone expected my father, James, to take over the company, but he died unexpectedly in a car accident when I was 15, leaving me in the care of my aunt and uncle. I still remember the funeral, the rain, the whispers, and Uncle William's hand on my shoulder, too heavy, already calculating the shift in family dynamics. Uncle William stepped in to run the company temporarily. That arrangement stretched into 13 years of him dismantling my grandfather's vision in favor of quick profits. Within the first year, William replaced half of the executive team with his own people, men who shared his philosophy that business was about maximization, not obligation. Meanwhile, I was relegated to the background, the orphan niece who needed to be looked after, but never truly included. Family dinners were exercises in polite exclusion. Conversations about the company would halt when I entered the room. "You're too much like your father, Eliza," Uncle William would say whenever I questioned his decisions, his voice carrying that particular blend of condescension and fake concern. All heart and no business sense. That's what got him nowhere. What William didn't know was that my father had been my grandfather's true confidant. While William saw only spreadsheets and profit margins, my father understood that Bennett Developments was built on relationships and integrity. My grandfather had taught my father everything, and my father had passed that knowledge to me. I could still picture those Saturdays clearly, my father lifting me onto his shoulders to see the framework of a new building, introducing me to foremen and architects who treated me as a future leader, teaching me to read blueprints while my mother brought us hot chocolate. "The buildings we create will outlast us," he'd tell me. "Make sure they stand for something worthwhile." When I graduated with my master's degree in urban planning, I approached Uncle William about taking a position in the company. "I'm not sure that's wise," he said, barely looking up from his computer. "This is a cutthroat business, Eliza. Perhaps something in marketing would be more suitable for someone with your sensibilities. His wife, Aunt Vivian, nodded in agreement. William is only thinking of what's best for you, dear. Besides, you wouldn't want to compete with your cousin. Richard is being groomed to take over someday. Richard, 2 years my junior and with half my qualifications, had been installed as vice president of operations straight out of his undergraduate program. He spent most of his time taking extended lunches and claiming credit for the work of others. I swallowed my pride and accepted a minor position in community relations. William didn't realize this position was perfect for my purposes. From this overlooked corner, I could access records, observe operations, and connect with employees at all levels. I built my own network, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. Maria Delgado, who had been my grandfather's executive assistant for 30 years before William demoted her, became my mentor. Your grandfather always said the real business happened at ground level, not in boardrooms, she told me. Through Maria, I connected with longtime employees who had been sidelined under William's leadership. Many were just waiting for someone to restore the company's original mission. The turning point came 18 months into my employment. Maria showed me evidence that William had been diverting company resources to a separate entity registered under his wife's maiden name, Harrington Holdings. William had been identifying promising properties, having associates approach owners with lowball offers, citing urban blight. Once acquired by Harrington Holdings at these deflated prices, the properties would be contracted to Bennett Developments for renovations at inflated costs. The profits flowed to William and Vivian, while Bennett Development's resources were drained. Most disturbing was his plan for Madison Gardens. This historic property had been my grandfather's first major acquisition. He'd mortgaged everything to save it from demolition, preserving its Victorian architecture while creating affordable housing for teachers, nurses, and civil servants. William planned to demolish it and replace it with luxury condominiums called the Madison, keeping only the name as a cynical nod to history. Market forces, he explained during a board meeting when questioned. Sentiment has no place in business. What William didn't know was that my grandfather had left me a separate inheritance through a trust that matured on my 28th birthday. The trust included substantial funds, properties held separately from Bennett Developments, and a letter. Asterisk, my dearest Eliza, asterisk. Asterisk, I've watched you grow into a remarkable young woman with your father's heart and your grandmother's determination. A powerful combination, asterisk. Asterisk, your father saw the big picture. William never will. His vision extends only to the next quarterly report, never to the next generation. The company is legally his to run, but the soul of Bennett Developments belongs to those who understand its true purpose. Wait, watch, learn, then act when the time is right, asterisk. Asterisk, trust in your judgment. You'll know when that moment comes, asterisk. Asterisk, all my love, asterisk. Asterisk, grandfather, asterisk. I used those funds to establish EB Innovations. By day, I was the unassuming niece working in the basement of Bennett Developments. By night, I was the driving force behind a company that embodied the original Bennett vision. Our first project transformed an abandoned factory into a mixed-use space with affordable housing and business incubators. We completed it on time and under budget, winning an award for adaptive reuse. When William announced the demolition of Madison Gardens, I acted. First, I secretly purchased the properties surrounding Madison Gardens through intermediaries. Next, working with my grandfather's attorney, I began acquiring Bennett Development stock. Years of William's leadership had caused the stock to underperform, making it possible for me to accumulate shares at reasonable prices. Meanwhile, I gathered documentation of William's questionable dealings and hired the best architects and preservationists to develop an alternative plan for Madison Gardens, one that would honor its history while updating it for the future. When William tried to secure permits for his luxury condominiums, he discovered that access to the site was now controlled by various property owners who refused to cooperate, all ultimately controlled by EB Innovations. William was furious. He tried threats, bribery, and finally, a direct confrontation with the mysterious EB Innovations. That's when I arranged our meeting at Madison Gardens itself. The building had been secretly renovated over the previous year. Instead of being demolished, it had been lovingly restored while updating the infrastructure to modern standards. It would remain affordable housing with additional community spaces. I don't understand, William fumed as he stormed into the foyer where I waited. Who do you think you are, interfering with Bennett business? I'll sue you into oblivion. That would be difficult, I replied calmly, considering that EB Innovations is now the majority shareholder in Bennett Developments. His face contorted in confusion. What are you talking about? That's impossible. Not impossible, Uncle William, just carefully planned. I handed him a folder containing documentation of his financial improprieties, along with proof that I had been systematically purchasing Bennett Development stock through my company. Your creative accounting provided the leverage I needed with the board members. As he flipped through the pages, his expression shifted from anger to shock to fear. You can't do this. You don't know how to run a company of this size. Actually, I do. I learned from my grandfather and my father. And unlike you, I understand that a company's value isn't measured solely by its profit margin. The doors opened and board members began to enter, along with key employees who had been loyal to my grandfather's vision. They had all been invited to the grand reopening of Madison Gardens and the announcement of Bennett Development's new direction. William tried to regain his composure. This is a mistake. Eliza is inexperienced. Eliza has demonstrated exceptional business acumen, interrupted Mrs. Chen, the longest-serving board member. Her proposals for sustainable development are exactly what this company and this city needs. The board has voted, William. It's done. I watched as 13 years of arrogance crumbled before me. William straightened his tie, trying to salvage his dignity. You'll regret this. You're too soft for this business. No, Uncle William. I'm exactly what this business needs, someone who understands that development isn't just about buildings, it's about communities. He stormed out, Aunt Vivian trailing behind him. Richard lingered, looking uncertain. What happens to me? He asked. That depends on you, I replied. If you're willing to actually learn the business from the ground up, there's a place for you. But no more corner offices without earning them. The opening ceremony for Madison Gardens took place 3 days later. The event highlighted not just the restored building but the new Bennett Development's mission, to create spaces that honored history while serving community needs. As I cut the ribbon, I thought about my grandfather and father. Their portraits hung in the main hallway, a reminder of the true Bennett legacy. Next to them was a simple plaque that read, "Building not just for profit, but for people." 6 months later, William and Vivian relocated to another state, their reputation in business circles damaged. Richard surprisingly embraced the opportunity to earn his position, working in various departments and developing a genuine understanding of the business. As for me, I continued my grandfather's vision, expanding affordable housing projects throughout the city. Each development included something special: community gardens, educational spaces, or art installations, elements that transformed mere buildings into thriving communities. Last week, a young developer approached me after a business conference. Ms. Bennett, she said, I admire what you've done with Bennett Developments. But how do you balance profitability with social responsibility? My partners keep pushing for maximum returns. I remembered my grandfather's words. The true measure of success isn't in the balance sheet at the end of the year. It's in the lives improved by the spaces we create. The secret, I told her, is understanding that doing good and doing well aren't mutually exclusive. The builders who focus only on immediate profit never create lasting legacies. As we parted, I handed her my card. Call me if you ever want to discuss a partnership. The industry needs more builders and fewer profiteers. Walking back to my office through the revitalized downtown, much of it now bearing the subtle influence of Bennett Development's philosophy, I felt a deep satisfaction. The family legacy was intact, not as a monument to wealth or power, but as a testament to vision and values. Sometimes the most effective response to those who underestimate you isn't a confrontation, but a demonstration. Success, properly achieved, speaks volumes, and buildings, thoughtfully created, tell stories that outlast us all.
Starting today, my sister and niece will be staying with us. We'll provide them with food, shelter, clothing, everything they need, my husband declared firmly. I blinked in surprise. What is he talking about? For the past month, my sister-in-law hadn't contributed a single penny toward household expenses. In fact, we had been the ones feeding her. Hold on a second, I said, unable to hide my frustration. You never mentioned we'd be living with them permanently. Ronan looked at me, clearly perplexed by my reaction. Lisa and her husband are divorced. She needs our support, and we're going to help her and live. We're even going to build a new house together and start fresh, as a family of 5, he said, as if it were a done deal. I stared at him, trying to process his words, but instead of confusion, a strange sense of clarity settled over me. It was as if the answer had been waiting inside me all along. My name is Raylan. I'm 32 years old, a housewife, and I've been married to Ronan for 7 years. Together we have a 5-year-old daughter, Mia. I believed we had a happy life as a family, but I was wrong. To my husband, it seemed that Lisa mattered more than Mia or me. One evening I heard a knock at the door and assumed it was Ronan. But when I opened it, I found Lisa and her daughter, Liv, standing there. Before I could react, Ronan strolled in behind them, announcing, "I'm home." "Welcome home," I said automatically, though confusion and irritation simmered beneath the surface. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" I asked cautiously. "I invited them," Ronan answered simply, as though that explained everything. Lisa smiled. "Hey Raylan. Long time no see." "Oh, hi," I responded, forcing a polite smile. Pulling my husband aside, I whispered, "What's going on? Why did you bring them here?" He looked annoyed. Lisa had some issues with her husband, so I told her she could stay with us. I stared at him, disbelief flooding through me. "You what?" "She needed help," he said with a shrug. "You didn't even ask me first." I hissed. "Why do I need permission to help my sister? You want me to abandon her? That's so heartless." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm saying you should have discussed it with me. This isn't just your house. Mia and I live here too." Ronan waved me off. "Relax, it's not like they're staying forever." But deep down, I knew better. My husband had always been overly attached to Lisa. When we were dating, he constantly spoke about her, calling her his pride and joy. At the time, I thought he was just a loving brother, but after we married, Lisa started intruding into our lives more and more. She'd come over unannounced, eat dinner with us, and even go shopping with Ronan like it was the most natural thing in the world. And he never once asked her to stop. Thankfully, when she got married, she stopped visiting as often. I had breathed a sigh of relief, thinking those days were behind us, but now it was happening all over again. With a sigh, I returned to the living room. Lisa had already made herself comfortable, sprawled across the couch, watching TV like she owned the place. Meanwhile, my husband was doting on her as usual. "Lisa, want some coffee?" Ronan offered cheerfully. "Yes, please," she replied without hesitation. "And Liv, I'll get you some orange juice." "Yay." Liv cheered. "There's pudding in the fridge too," Ronan added. Lisa clapped her hands. "Ooh, I love pudding." That was the last straw. "Hey," I snapped. "I bought those for Mia." "Raylan, don't be selfish. We should be generous with our guests," Ronan scolded. "You should learn to be more considerate." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you calling me selfish?" Mia, who had been silently watching, looked heartbroken as she realized her treat was gone. I bent down and gently took her hands. "Mia, let's go out for a bit. You can have whatever dessert you want." Her face lit up. "Really? Yay." I needed to clear my head, and Mia deserved better than this nonsense. At the restaurant, she happily dug into a parfait while I sipped my coffee, trying to think of a way to handle the situation. But before I could gather my thoughts, an all-too-familiar voice interrupted. "There you are," Ronan said, walking up to our table. I looked up, startled. "What?" "You could have at least made dinner for us before running off," he said accusingly. I stared at him in disbelief. "Excuse me." "I left your food on the table," I shot back. "You should have cooked for Lisa and Liv too," he argued. "Raylan, you're not acting like a proper housewife." I clenched my fists. "Are you kidding me?" But instead of listening, Ronan turned to Lisa. "Let's check out the menu." Lisa and Liv ordered a full meal, steak for Lisa and a kid's meal for Liv. My quiet outing with Mia had been hijacked. Then Liv piped up, "I want a parfait like Mia's." Lisa smirked. "I could go for dessert too." Without hesitation, Ronan ordered 2 more parfaits. Lisa and Liv ate happily, while my irritation boiled over. "You were eating pudding right before this," I muttered. Lisa shrugged. "That's why we're at a restaurant." When they finally finished, Lisa stretched. "Ah, I'm stuffed." Me too, Liv added, rubbing her stomach. Lisa yawned. I'm getting sleepy now. Roman stood up. All right, let's head home, he announced. Then, with a casual glance at me, he added, Raylan, you take care of the bill. I froze. What? Before I could protest, he turned and walked out, leaving me speechless and holding the check. In the end, I had no choice but to cover my sister-in-law's meal from our household budget. Since my husband had ordered expensive dishes, the total came to nearly $50. If he hadn't insisted on bringing her along, we wouldn't have had to bear that extra cost. 2 weeks passed, yet my sister-in-law showed no intention of leaving. My husband was so focused on her and his niece that he barely acknowledged his own daughter. One night, with tears in her eyes, Mia asked me, Mom, is Liv more important to Dad than me? Her words shattered my heart. I held her close and tried to comfort her. Sweetheart, Liv and her mom don't have a home right now, so your dad is just trying to help them. But that doesn't mean he loves you any less. I reassured her, even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. I knew this couldn't go on, so I confronted my husband. Mia is really hurt by how distant you've been. I'm not saying you shouldn't care for Liv, but shouldn't your own daughter be your priority? Roman let out an annoyed sigh. Fine, he muttered. His tone made it sound like he was doing me a favor rather than acknowledging his own child's feelings. My frustration boiled over. Why are you acting like this is such a chore? Are you really so reluctant to spend time with your own daughter? Rolling his eyes, he snapped, Why do you always nag? I said I'll talk to Mia, but his promise was meaningless. He continued to dote on Liv while giving Mia only the bare minimum of attention. A month passed since Lisa and Liv moved in. Every couple of weeks I asked my husband, when do they plan on leaving? His answer was always the same, I don't know yet. Meanwhile, Lisa and Liv did whatever they pleased, turning our small apartment into a mess. No matter how often I cleaned, it was impossible to keep up. We had originally chosen this apartment because it was affordable. We were saving up to build a house. But now, with Lisa and Liv around, the place felt cramped and chaotic. At first, everyone had their own room. One for me and Ronan, one for Mia. But when Lisa moved in, I was forced to share a room with Mia while Lisa took over mine. Just when I thought I had reached my breaking point, Ronan made a shocking announcement. From now on, he declared, we're going to support Lisa and Liv completely. We'll provide for their food, clothing, and everything they need. I was speechless. What is he saying? Lisa hadn't contributed a single cent toward expenses in the past month, yet he expected us to take full responsibility for them. Hold on, I said, unable to hide my anger. You never said we'd be living with them permanently. Lisa is divorced now. She and Liv need us, he insisted. We're going to build a new house and live together as a family of 5. I stared at him, struggling to comprehend his words. Then, without thinking, I blurted out, fine. Then I'm divorcing you. His eyes widened. Divorce. Yes, I said firmly. I refuse to stay married to someone who prioritizes his sister and niece over his own wife and child. You're just jealous, he scoffed. I let out a bitter laugh. Jealous? Don't make me laugh. I simply refuse to live in this situation any longer. Mia and I deserve better. His face twisted in anger. Don't insult my sister. I'm just stating facts. They've been living off of us like parasites. It's like taking care of an overgrown child and a spoiled one at the same time. That finally pushed him over the edge. That's enough. Fine. If you want a divorce, then go. I won't stop you. I crossed my arms and smirked, glad to hear it. Then, I pulled out a set of divorce papers from the drawer and handed them to him. I had already prepared them a few days earlier, knowing this moment would come. His face turned red with fury, but he grabbed the papers and filled them out on the spot. Without another word, I packed up our things, took Mia by the hand, and walked out of that suffocating apartment, back to my parents' house, where we were truly welcome. Later, when it came time to divide our assets, we met with a lawyer. For some reason, my ex-husband brought Lisa along. She smirked at me. I wanted to see your miserable face for myself. I just sighed. Let's get this over with. I turned to my ex. Since we saved this money together, we'll split it 50-50ths. Lisa scoffed. Oh, that's a lot. But whatever, I don't care. I still have the money I got from my divorce settlement. Good for you, I replied, uninterested. Are we done here? My ex-husband muttered, yeah, I guess so. Lisa grinned. Well, now my brother and I will build a new house and live comfortably with Liv. Meanwhile, you'll be stuck in some tiny, run-down apartment. Poor you. I tilted my head and smiled. Oh, you're still planning to build that house? Of course, she sneered. I shrugged. That's funny, because where exactly are you planning to build it? My ex-husband frowned. What do you mean? I sighed dramatically. Oh, I knew you forgot. You always had trouble remembering the important details. He looked at me in confusion. What are you talking about? That land we were going to build on? It belonged to my father. He was giving it to us. As in, me and Hugh. But now that we're divorced, that land is no longer yours. So, good luck building that house. Lisa's face drained of color. What? Brother, you promised me we'd have a free house. That's the only reason I divorced my husband. Well, I said with a smirk, that's not my problem. Ignoring her outraged shrieks, I turned to the lawyer. I think we're done here. Without looking back, I walked out with my lawyer, leaving my ex and his sister frozen in shock. Later, I heard that my ex-husband continued living in that cramped apartment with Lisa and Liv, but with 3 mouths to feed, plus the child support payments he owed me, his savings quickly drained. I also found out that Lisa's ex-husband had left her because she was a reckless spender. I had no doubt she would drain her brother's finances the same way. Recently, my ex even tried reaching out, asking if we could get back together. I didn't even bother responding. I just blocked him. As for me, I found a new job, and my parents are helping me raise Mia. I'm working hard as a single mom, and honestly, I've never been happier. Mia is adored by her grandparents, and she hasn't once asked to see her father since the divorce. I'll keep watching her grow and living happily with my family, the people who actually love us. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay tuned.